So before we continue with the video, I want to talk to you guys about where I got this shirt from, and you probably guessed it, jerseyfifa.com. They have kindly sponsored today's video and also sent me a load of free shirts for me to check out myself, and I can now really vouch for the quality of these products. They have loads of shirts to offer on the website, so if you are interested, head to the link in the description down below and check out Jersey FIFA for yourself. Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we are talking about Manchester United's 3-0 win over Leicester in the Premier League. Today we will be covering what went wrong for Manchester United in the first half and how Leicester were having some success, and then how Jadon Sancho in particular, but of course also Ten Hag, changed the game in the second half to swing it in Manchester United's favour and to end up seeing a really good performance. But like I said, we will start off with the first half, because in the first half I thought that Leicester were not by far but comfortably the better team, and Rodgers had them set up quite nicely. So let's look at some of the reasons they had some success. And it started with a pressing issue from Manchester United. And it's the same pressing issue that we keep seeing. I keep referring to it as being a problem. And it keeps happening for Manchester United, particularly at the start of games. So, as usual, Manchester United go man for man in midfield. And Rashford picks up one of the centre-backs. Fernandes picks up a full-back. And then the other winger, sometimes Garnacho or whoever else it could be, kind of picks up the centre-back, but also between the centre-back and the full-back. There's a problem with this, because if your spacing isn't right, and you can't get out here quick enough, it means that Ward can just very easily clip the ball over the top to Castagna. And we can see the same down this side as well. At times it would be the other way around. Garnacho would be on the fullback, Rashford would be across, Bruno Fernandes would be in between. And again, Ward can just chip out to the fullback. And what we can see is that there is now no Manchester United player to engage the ball, because the fullback is caught up on Barnes on this side and Tete on this side. And it's a pressing issue which Manchester United really have. We did see them experiment with a different shape against Crystal Palace, I believe it was. However, we haven't seen it again since. Manchester United do have a problem in this area. And what this meant, particularly down the right-hand side, during the first half, was that Leicester very easily progressed the ball forward. And Castagna against Garnacho struggled in that battle from a defensive point of view. Now, Garnacho put the defensive work in. It weren't a case of being lazy or lacking in effort. He just, almost in terms of physique, couldn't really keep up with Castagna. He couldn't really compete with him, and Castagna was able to progress the ball really easily. And instantly what this is going to do is cause some problems for Manchester United, because in a man-to-man press they've now had 3 players taken out of the game, which obviously leads to a problem, because now if Castagna comes into this area here, you can't just let him carry the ball forward. So someone like Fred might have to go out and engage, but then you can see Manchester United's midfield start to get pulled apart a little bit, because Dewsbury Hall is now the free man, so Sabitzer might step out, but now James Maddison's the free man. So you can see the problem there. Leicester progress it very easily out wide in these wide areas, and then when they look to come inside, they drag the Manchester United players into all sorts of different positions. What we also saw was someone like Maddison drifting wide left, dragging Sabitzer right out of the way, and say Castagna could have the ball here. Iheanacho had so much space in front of the Manchester United defence to drop into. And again, this is where United lack someone like Casemiro, that experience, but also that positional sense to protect the centre-backs. We did not see that at all in the first half. And Leicester got the ball into this area, into Iheanacho's feet, time and time again, and United didn't really have the answer for it in the first half. The midfielders were really losing their individual battles. Someone like Weghorst put in a really, really good shift, but they were just losing the duels, which isn't really acceptable for Manchester United, but at times that is just how halves of football go. This wasn't massively tactical. Yes, Manchester United the press was a problem. However, in the middle of the park, it wasn't a massive tactical issue in my opinion. It was more of an intensity issue. Leicester were just first to every ball. And then what they looked to do from here was go into Iheanacho's feet, like I keep saying. And Lisandro Martinez struggled in the first half. Iheanacho done a good job of holding the ball up, kind of pinning him off, and then laying the ball off to someone like James Maddison, who was in this area where there was no protection. And then we can see Barnes and Tete both making runs. We can see the problems for Manchester United. And Leicester had some really good opportunities in the first 30-35 minutes or so, and Manchester United have to be really thankful to David De Gea in this game. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. His shot stopping kept Manchester United in the game in the first half, but in general I thought he had a good game. We saw him punching a few crosses away, a couple of corners, we saw his passing for most of the game. There were a couple of off ones, but in general, really good passing. Really good performance from David De Gea. For me, maybe his best performance of the season. And it might get overlooked because Manchester United won 3-0, but in the first half he really kept Manchester United in the game. However, this was a problem for Manchester United, because defensively they were just really struggling. And the other problem was the volume of defending that they were having to do, because every time they got the ball they just gave the ball straight back. Sabitzer and Fred lacked any control in the middle of the park. Weghorst was struggling to keep the ball, everything's bouncing off him, falling back to Leicester, Leicester then attack again. When Manchester United did get the ball on the rare occasion, they were far too direct, too quickly. At times, you just need to take an extra touch, slow things down. Manchester United lacked that composure. We saw Sabitzer playing passes forward, Bruno Fernandes playing passes forward, and Rashford just couldn't get into the game at all in the first half. We didn't see Garnacho having any threat down the left-hand side at all in the first half. That's not on him. The ball just wasn't given to him. And Manchester United it wasn't very good. However, when you've got a player like Bruno Fernandes, who out of one moment of quality can capitalise on a mistake by Wout Faes to give the ball away with what is just a poor pass. You can't play the pass into that area with that weight. It's a silly mistake from him. And then you've got the quality of Bruno Fernandes to play it outside the right boot through to Marcus Rashford. We know the form Rashford is on. Manchester United 1-0 up. They did not deserve to be 1-0 up at all in the first half. However, they were. But then Ten Hag still weren't happy. There is no way that he was happy with that first half performance. He was asked about it at full time. And he said, I haven't got time to talk about all the issues in the first half. He really wasn't happy with it. And as a result, we saw a change. So the change for Manchester United was quite simple. Marcus Rashford moves to the left-hand side. Weghorst now moves up front. Fernandes maintains his spot on the right-hand side. And Jadon Sancho comes onto the pitch as the attacking midfielder. And as we will see, Jadon Sancho changed this game. So Ten Hag really does deserve a lot of credit for this. Jadon Sancho, I thought, really good in this game. And on the ball, he had a massive impact. However, I also thought that we saw a slight shift from Manchester United from a defensive point of view. So whereas before one of the wingers was coming narrow onto the centre-backs, Manchester United seemed to ditch that approach a little bit. So United was still man-for-man in midfield, like this. However, rather than pushing the wingers high, they were now sitting a bit deeper on the two Leicester City fullbacks. So then when Leicester played one way, from Ward to one of the centre-backs, their course would force them that way, and now Manchester United have maintained their man-for-man approach across the pitch. So rather than, whereas before we saw this winger getting played over far too easily, Leicester City now didn't have that option, which really took out a lot of Leicester's ball progression. Again, this is something which won't really be spoken about because Manchester United won 3-0. However, this slight change, moving the wingers just a little bit deeper, really stopped Leicester progressing the ball. And what we saw in the second half also was an increased intensity. Suddenly Manchester United were winning these duels in the middle. Sabitzer was getting the better of James Maddison, and Sabitzer had a really good second half. Fred was beating Dewsbury Hall, Sancho up against Mendy. Manchester United were winning their battles. And I think the other really important battle was Lisandro Martinez on Iheanacho. Second half, Lisandro Martinez was so much more aggressive, so much more front-footed, getting into him straight away, not giving Iheanacho a minute really. Winning the ball back in these areas and then playing forward. We literally saw that in the build-up to one of the goals, so make sure you check out the highlights because you will see exactly what I'm talking about. This then puts Manchester United on the front foot. However, the important thing for Manchester United is now that the quality on the ball has to be better, because in the first half there were situations where they won possession but then lacked quality. In the second half, we saw just a completely different level of quality on the ball. This, for me, is where the Jadon Sancho substitution really comes into play. In the first half, Manchester United were man-for-man in the middle of the park and lacking quality on the ball. Weghorst, Fred and Sabitzer didn't do enough of getting the ball to stick. They weren't linking with each other, they were playing too fast, too quickly. Too fast, too quickly? Too long, too quickly is what I meant to say. Sancho brings a different level of technical quality and technical security on the ball. And suddenly, with Jadon Sancho, Manchester United went from losing the midfield battle to winning it. Because what Sancho does is he has gravity. And by that I mean, when Sancho gets the ball, people are terrified of him. Which means Maddison suddenly drops deeper, Mendy drops in on him to try and get him, which then means you have a free man like Sabitzer, which instantly gives Manchester United more control. Sancho is a player which attracts opposition players. The gravity, they get around him, try and suffocate him on the ball, but ultimately that opens up spaces for other players. And that is a big reason that Manchester United got back into this game. Because it meant that Sabitzer, or not got back into the game, but took control of the game. Because it meant Sabitzer could now get on the ball and dictate play, and like I said, I thought he had a really good second half. But importantly, Manchester United could get their danger men on the ball. Sancho was getting the ball in these areas, Fernandes was getting the ball in these areas. Rashford suddenly had so many more touches on the ball and looked way more threatening, looking to dribble at Castagne, but also make runs into this gap here. Of course, again, something we saw for one of the goals. But the big thing for me, Jadon Sancho and Bruno Fernandes, their link-up worked so well. Like I said, Jadon Sancho linking up in the middle of the park, it just gave Manchester United security on the ball. First half, it was just constant turnovers, made it really transitional. Second half, Jadon Sancho just brought a calm on the ball, a technical ability, and he just kept the ball for his side. And this meant that Manchester United could just slowly get up the pitch, and then from here, they looked really dangerous. And again, it's because of Sancho and Bruno Fernandes. Sancho is grabbing the attention of other players, which gives Bruno Fernandes more room. And I actually quite like this dynamic of Sancho in the middle, Bruno Fernandes wider, because it actually kind of suits the two of them. If you look at their profiles, Sancho is a player which is good at keeping the ball, he's good in tight spaces, and good at getting the ball forward. Bruno Fernandes is someone who tries to be very creative, looks forward very quickly. So it actually kind of works better this way around. When Bruno Fernandes plays in the middle, he almost gets a bit too much of the ball at the time and loses possession too much. Whereas on the right hand side, he is now solely responsible for creating. In the middle, he's responsible for progressing and creating. So playing on the right hand side kind of takes that burden away from him a little bit. It means that he can focus on creating chances, while Sancho in the middle is the one linking the play, getting the ball moving forward. Bruno Fernandes, absolutely brilliant. 9 key passes in the game from this wide right position. The joint most of any player in the Premier League this season. I say joint because Bruno Fernandes also had 9 key passes earlier in the season as well. Really, really good performance from Bruno Fernandes. It's another one of those ones where it doesn't really get spoken about because he does it so often. He's just so good for Manchester United. But what this wide right role does is it just means he has to create, and it just seems to suit him. And against teams which do at times try and sit a bit deeper, I think it really works for Manchester United. And now with Sancho progressing the ball from these areas, we could have Manchester United attacking with a front 5, up against the Leicester City back 4. And you won't see many examples of a 5 versus 4 being so effective very often this season. Because what we constantly saw from Leicester was Christensen coming across, fast coming across, all the Leicester City's defenders shuffle across, and then when you got the long passing of Bruno Fernandes, but also the ability to go back to Sabitzer as well, United have been happy to flip the switch, go over to the other side, and then attack Leicester City again. The amount of times that they worked the free man at the far post was really, really impressive. Manchester United should have gone on to score more. Weghorst just couldn't really find the back of the net. He had another one of those days. I'm sure the goals will come from him soon. He's getting into good positions, good chances. It's just not quite working for him. However, I still think he deserves credit because he's playing this makeshift role at times in midfield, but he looked more comfortable up front. And Manchester United in that second half is one of the best halves of football I've seen from Manchester United in quite a while. I thought Leicester had very little threat in the second half. Defensively, Manchester United were much, much better. But then, because of Jadon Sancho on the ball, they just went to a different level entirely. Ultimately, Ten Hag deserves so much credit because again at half-time he recognised that his initial approach weren't working. He was happy to change. He wasn't stubborn and stuck with what he'd done. He swallowed his pride again and went, okay, the first half hasn't quite worked. Let's change something in the second half. He changed the defensive shape a little bit, but on the ball, Jadon Sancho was really the difference maker. I thought Bruno Fernandes was brilliant as well. And of course, Marcus Rashford. To see Rashford and Sancho both smiling after what they've gone through in the last 12 months was really, really good to see. And all round, it was a really good game for Manchester United. We got Rashford scoring, Sancho scoring, Bruno Fernandes getting the assists. Manchester United were able to rotate in the second half as well. A few players were rested at the start of the game. Ultimately, almost a perfect game. A 3-0 win, clean sheet, 3 points, a really great performance for Manchester United. Ten Hag deserves a lot of credit. De Gea should not be forgotten because his first half was brilliant. Bruno Fernandes was wonderful on the right hand side. And then you got that lethal nature of these two in the attack as well. Really good day for Manchester United. So yeah, that's all I've got to say for today's video. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below though. Who impressed you the most? What did you think of that switch with Sancho in the 10 in the second half? All of that, let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video. And as always, I will see you in the next one.